Welcome back to the Wargrove of Woe, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some underutilized and overlooked rules in Age of Sigmar, specifically terrain rules. Now terrain can kind of be hit or miss with Age of Sigmar as it's not necessarily as important as say 40k, where line of sight blocking terrain is a very important necessity. For the most part, I often see terrain in Age of Sigmar as kind of decoration and a little bit less of a critical thing to be concerned with when putting together battlefields. But the terrain rules in Age of Sigmar are somewhat important and well fleshed out if you just kind of take a second to look at them. So let's get started. So before we begin, let's talk about what is considered terrain. Terrain comes in two forms. You have battlefield terrain and scatter terrain. Battlefield terrain is the important one. That is your big terrain pieces that you can climb on, fight on, or use to block line of sight, whereas scatter terrain is just kind of battlefield detritus or small terrain features that are purely decorational. The pictures I have on this slide are to kind of show this. The Catacombs set for Warcry has a whole bunch of battlefield terrain as well as scatter terrain in the context of Age of Sigmar. The little ruined buildings and the bell tower would be considered battlefield terrain, whereas these little, that well, the bridges, the kind of rubble, that is going to be scattered terrain. Now, there isn't necessarily a hardline rule as to what is considered scattered terrain or battlefield terrain. That is something that you and your opponent or you and your gaming group will have to decide on your own. Additionally, in the General's Handbook 2021, they have a recommended minimum number of terrain features depending on the point size of your game. At a 1000 level point game, you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 8, whereas at a 2000 point game, you're looking at anywhere between 8 to 12. Now these are just a recommended minimum. You can go higher and you could go lower if you just want an open field to get shot or slaughtered in, but each to their own. So now that we've established what battlefield terrain is, what does battlefield terrain do? So for starters, battlefield terrain does two major things. For one, movement is required to climb up or climb down battlefield terrain unless a unit has the fly ability or fly keyword. The top picture in this slide is directly taken from the General's Handbook 2021, where it shows how different units they must go up or down based off of their measurements, whereas units with fly, such as Yndrasta, can just draw a direct line or fly over them. The other thing that battlefield terrain does is it provides cover. Now, what cover means is if an entire unit is behind or wholly on top of a terrain feature when being targeted by an attack, they get +1 to save. Units with 10 plus wounds cannot gain the benefit of cover. The bottom picture in this slide is also directly taken from the General's Handbook 2021, where it shows two different scenarios, one where the zombie unit gets cover and one that it doesn't. The bolt boy that is shooting over that little fallen rubble piece, they are getting cover from that attack, whereas the bolt boy coming from the side, the zombies will not get cover from that attack. The main thing to be concerned with about cover is if the attacking unit cannot draw a straight line flat and horizontally from base to base, and if there is intervening terrain, that is considered cover. Next, a little bit more of a niche rule for terrain is garrisons and what they do. Garrisons are a little bit odd in that you can only garrison defensible terrain features. This is buildings or ruins that kind of are a lot larger, and you can put entire models on them. An example of defensible or garrisonable terrain is the Seraphon Realm Shaper engine. This is just kind of a well-known garrisonable feature, but you can decide what is garrisonable and what is not. There is specific rules for how many models you can put in a garrisonable feature. For a large piece, I believe it was 60 models. For a small or medium piece, it's like 15 to 30. Being in a garrisoned building is pretty nice. It provides a -1 to hit and a +1 to save. But if a garrisoned building is destroyed via monstrous actions, you roll dice for each model in the garrison, and on a 1, it is slain. So it's kind of similar to explosive rules in Warhammer 40k, where if you destroy transport, you have to roll dice for all the units inside the transport and da-da-da-da-da, all that jazz. Once a garrison building is destroyed, you must remove all of the models that survive, and they must be placed within 6 inches of the destroyed building and outside of 3 of an enemy unit, I believe. Before I move on to the last slide of this video, I'd like to give an extra special thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. A special thanks to Nick Hoff. If you would be interested in becoming a Patreon supporter or joining the Discord, there's links to those two websites down in the description below. Lastly, there is some optional rules for terrain. They are called mysterious terrain rules. I personally don't use them that much, but that is mostly just a personal preference. Mysterious terrain can be very interesting and provide a unique change to your battlefields if you want them. It makes terrain a little bit more flavorful and a little bit more impactful. How it works is before the battle begins, you roll dice for each terrain piece on the board, and then you consult the chart that is pictured to the right of the slide. And the roll of your d6 determines a special additional rule that is added to that terrain feature. The kind of standout ones here are arcane, mystical, or damned is kind of good as well. The inspired and sinister are lackluster. Deadly is just kind of annoying occasionally. And damned is a little bit hit or miss. Taking some damage for temporary rerolling to hit is somewhat niche, but okay. Arcane is very powerful, and so is mystical. So those are the basic terrain rules for Age of Sigmar 3.0. Terrain is something that is kind of misunderstood, I think, in Age of Sigmar, and hopefully this video helps alleviate that, especially for new players. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment, and if you'd like to see more of this content in the future, please consider subscribing. This has been the Wargrove of Woe, and I'll talk to you guys next time.